In today's episode, we're focusing on how to make great decisions, and not just about making great decisions in the moment, but also all the different decisions and the systems and the processes that take place after the decision to make that decision right. And we're fortunate to have Jennifer Davis, who's the Chief Marketing Officer over at Learfield, who's going to be talking about her new book called Well Made Decisions. We're going to give you some great information in terms of how you can look at the decisions that you're facing in your career and your broader life, and how ultimately to make those great. And by the way, Jennifer has some serious leadership chops because she's been a senior executive at Amazon, which we dive into some of her background there and over at Honeywell. Let's get into it. Enjoy the episode.
Decisions actually are not right or wrong by and large. They are made right by what happens after the decision. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And I feel like that is at the heart of decisions, business decisions that I'm reflecting on, is that the decision itself was 1%. And 99% was everything that, all the work streams that kicked off after that, all of the follow-on decisions and the alignment and communication and the transformation that happened in organizations in order to give us the luxury of looking back and saying, that was a good decision.
So what do people need to think about when they're facing a big decision?
First of all, most decisions are not big. And I think it's very important to understand the kind of decision that you're making. But essentially, you need to think of decisions like maybe walking through a door. This is an analogy I know that Amazon uses. A one-way door is one that you can only go through once. It locks behind you. If you don't like what you see, you can't easily go back. A two-way door decision, is on a hinge, right? And you can go in and you can try something out, you can experiment, and you can always get back. So for instance, you have a website, and should the buttons be blue or orange? That is a quintessential two-way door. So you should put about that much effort into it.
Yeah, you can reverse it so easily. So just move on. Make the decision.
Just move on and delegate the decision down and go. But if it's a decision that's a one-way door, it's going to affect your business long-term. The first thing I would challenge people to think of is, one, is it a one-way door or a two-way door? And if you think it's a one-way door, how can you install a hinge? Is there a way that you could make it smaller? Could you start out like we talked about by writing it down and socializing that idea to ensure that you're on the right path? Could you build a prototype? Could you start in some small way with a minimum viable product out there to try to test it? How can you build your confidence in small, reversible ways to get to the right outcome? So hopefully, maybe it takes the pressure off a little bit, makes us move a little faster, be a little bit more nimble, because frankly, those who make more decisions and make those decisions faster can make more high quality decisions too.
When you're making so many decisions, like you're going through the store with your kid, you get to the end and then they have like the magazines and the candy there tempting you. And you're just like, okay, give me the Snickers bar because I'll just take it. I'm tired of making decisions. Any insights are there?
I hope maybe you could tell me, because this is the situation in our house most nights. What do we want for dinner? I don't know.
I'm making decisions all day long.
I can't make any more decisions. So ultimately, this is why some people actually organize their day differently. They find that they make more thoughtful decisions earlier in the day, or right after their cup of coffee, or right after their run, or something like that.
Yeah.
So I would say it goes back to the theme of self-reflection. Know when you're in your best.
That's a great point. Yeah.
And then also, like, there are people, I have not done this, but there are people who are very conscious about taking decisions out of their diet. So I would say, like, think about, I would be just reflective. When you notice yourself being impulsive, or when you reflect back on a decision and think, why did I even make that decision? I should have let Bill or Janisa on my team make that decision, they were in a much better spot to do it.
Yeah.
When you reflect on that, think about the conditions. Were you hungry? Were you tired? Were you traveling from place to place? Were you kind of fearful about this outcome? Do you really trust the people you're working with? The more reflective you are on that, the better you are going to be at prioritizing decisions.
Yeah.
Because really, that is how to fight decision fatigue, is to prioritize. Something that I learned at Amazon is that there's a difference between role clarity and ownership and having to manage it all yourself and be in charge of it all. And a company at the scale and the velocity of Amazon, when I left the company, I think they had 1.2 million employees. I mean, it's a
such a small company.
Yeah, small company, like
just a startup.
It's a startup, yeah. But it actually, I joke, but it runs a lot more like a startup than you might imagine, because there are groups that are out solving customer problems headlong, diving right into the deep end, and they don't spend a lot of time asking, is anybody else trying to solve this problem? Like, they're not trying to have a committee to bring together everybody who might be interested in it to solve it. They're just trying to solve it as quickly and as effectively as possible. And what I saw come to fruition time and time again is, if you do a good job of solving the problem, then you'll naturally need more resources. You'll naturally get the attention of other groups. You'll naturally have more people wanting to join the effort to solve a customer problem successfully. So you don't have to fight so hard to have your elbows out to say, I own this, I own this. You can actually do something in a positive direction, and naturally the organization will, want to come together. So the more that you can think like a business person, really understanding the objectives of the business, it's very important to know how the score is kept and how what you do every day relates to that. I work in sports now, and I've used this analogy long before I arrived here, is that I think about like a baseball team. And if you're a third baseman and you can run and you can jump and you can hit the ball, you might have all the fundamental skills to be an excellent third baseman, but if you don't know how to read the scoreboard, you're not going to be a very good third baseman. If I had learned that earlier in my career, I think I would have been a better marketer. I think I would have been a better strategist. And hopefully I continue to grow as a leader too. I hope I would have been even a better leader, directing my team to the things that were having the biggest impact on our business and our customers. Turnover might actually be a really great thing for implementing business change, potentially. In other cases, you have the right strategy, you feel like you've designed an organization that can get you there, and you have a coaching and management problem, or you have a culture problem, or you have you know what I mean, some other issue going on in the business that is keeping what otherwise would be a winning strategy from being successful. So I feel like leaders can't just take a turnover number and say, judge whether it's good or bad, and to know what actions to take. They have to dive deeper. They have to double click on it. I've worked at organizations that had very rigid performance management targets, and they were actively exiting out and performance managing folks that were solid performers. And then in other organizations, they seek to retain talent, maybe even longer than does the business or that individual, good. And so again, I think it's very nuanced. It's very specific to your business, but I would encourage everybody, when you see a number like turnover, get curious.
What is the most effective way that they can communicate that to the C-suite?
What I would say is write it down.
Write it down.
It sounds so simple, but let me break it down. There's a process that I learned at Amazon that we use there called the working backwards process, and many other companies. In fact, even before I joined Amazon, I had done this before in different ways. But if an employee with a big idea sits down and writes the press release as if the organization had already invested to develop that idea, and it was being launched into the marketplace with some marquee customers, If the employee can be thoughtful enough and think deeply enough to write a headline that captures the value proposition, a fake customer quote that says, "This is the best thing since sliced bread, and here's the problem it's solved for me." And you can describe what the solution is, or the problem it solves and the solution to it in a couple sentences, and then how a customer or client partner would engage with that solution. If you can boil all that down and present it in one page, like a press release, it illustrates a couple of things. One, it's the cheapest way to prototype an idea, because you don't have to build anything yet. You haven't invested in product development or anything like that. All you've done is try to coalesce and imagine what the future how much better the future would be if this product or service existed. And then you could define who the customer is, why they would care. If you can do that in one page, it can build momentum. You can use that to socialize it with people who would be a part of building the solution. You can use that to sell it in to get the resources needed to be a part of it. And there's an executive in the world that can't spend the 5 minutes it would take them to read a one-page document that's been socialized and is gaining momentum in their organization. Who wouldn't want to read that and be a part of it? And so that fake press release, that PR FAQ is what Amazon called it, becomes an invitation to join a movement, an effort, an initiative that solves a customer problem that you can identify. And again, there's something super compelling about that. So write it down.
Yes, I love that.